how do you measure results over the life of this campaign? Because you have many elements. You're trying to raise awareness, you're trying to educate, you're trying to inform, you have many audiences. How do you evaluate the effectiveness of what you're doing?
The March of Dimes has utilized the Gallup studies extensively to try to measure how effective the media campaigns have been, as well as the educational campaigns. We began the folic acid campaign with trying to find out how many people were aware of folic acid and did they know. And we've had 2 studies since the initial one to sort of show us where we are. It was because of the results of these studies that we were aware that the audiences were did have an increased awareness of folic acid, but there was still a lot of misunderstandings of what folic acid was. And certainly, even though they were aware of it and maybe knew that it had something to do with birth defects, they weren't actually changing behavior and actually taking those vitamins. And what we found out from the studies were that the behavior was really not going to be changed unless their health care provider was the person that actually told them and encouraged them to add the folic acid to their diet. And that's when we really launched a more concerted effort through media that the doctors would be reading, as well as educational components for healthcare providers about folic acid, so that first making sure that they knew all the information and were very comfortable about providing it, and how important it was for their patients to receive the information from them.
What are some of the constraints that the healthcare providers face in terms of educating their patients about folic acid?
Time, as much as anything. Every doctor is limited into the amount of time that they have with the patients now. There's so many other issues that they must get across and see so many other patients during the day. It's very difficult to get them to be sure to include that in all of their listings of things that they have to talk with their patients about. That's why not only addressing the doctors themselves, but also the nurses, because many times it's the nurses that have a little bit more time with the patients as she's taking the blood pressures and the weight and all of those statistical types of things, that she can talk about folic acid as well as other types of things that they need to be doing.
You know, one of the concepts that we work with in communication theory is source credibility. So it sounds like one of the strategies that you had was the credibility of the healthcare provider would really be most influential in terms of changing attitudes and hopefully behavior. Mm-hmm. So it seems like that's an approach that you used. How do you measure the success of whether or not you're reaching healthcare providers given the constraint of time?
That's a good question, and we're almost not there yet to be able to really answer that. We've really, over just the last year of the 3-year campaign, really tried to focus on more of the healthcare providers. The kits that were developed by Dr. Lynn Bailey and Gail Rapachon and the others from our March of Dimes grant is going out to the health departments as well as to doctors and nurses, and it's going to take a little while to see how effectively they're using those materials. One other way that we're trying to get the message delivered by another credible source is to provide leaflets and pamphlets out to the pharmacists. And we're talking with the pharmacists now about what types of tools do they need would be the most effective for them to help share that message and increase that credible education message about the importance of folic acid.
Now I'm going to ask you a tough question, which is that some theorists argue that it's because of the difficulty of changing behavior, particularly with respect to issues like weight control or other kinds of health behaviors, it's almost impossible to look at any way of really getting everybody to do it. So why bother? Some folks argue if people aren't motivated to do it on their own, they may have the intention to do it, but that intention may not be followed through. How do you answer that kind of question?
10, 15 years ago, we had that same type of question about smoking. and eventually the message has gotten out, and it's just a long-term concerted effort. And as we continue through press releases and stories about how babies are being saved because their moms knew about folic acid, the message of perhaps a mom that lost a baby due to a neural tube defect, but then with the additional folic acid, she better ensured her chances of having a healthy baby, and indeed had a healthy baby. The more hopefully that people will take those messages personally and realize that this is important. It's like that starfish being thrown into the sea. At least you save one if you save any at all. And so it's a long-term process. It's not something that we're going to accomplish with even a 3-year campaign. But as long as we associate folic acid with a grassroots, this is something that we can solve not by scientists doing some sort of magic research. We know the information, and it's just getting the information out to the public and having them change the behaviors, adding that folic acid. And folic acid has become such a buzzword about doing so many good things for the body. I think people are beginning to take it more seriously and realize that a multivitamin is important for them from the time that they're very, very young through when they're getting older.
So every day, folic acid.
Exactly.
Thank you, Betsy.
Thank you.